I stared at Alex, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Why won't you ever let me have a say in this, Alex?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because it's for my parents, Lisa. I thought you'd understand." His dismissive tone only fueled my frustration. We'd been together for years, yet he still treated me like an outsider when it came to major decisions involving his family. "But we're supposed to be a team," I pressed. "Doesn't my opinion matter at all?" Alex's jaw tightened. "Of course it does, but this is something I have to do for them. They've sacrificed so much for me." I bit back a bitter retort, knowing it would only lead to another pointless argument. Instead, I forced a smile. "Well, what is this big surprise you've been planning?" His expression brightened. "You'll see. Pack your bags, we're going on a trip." The drive was tense, with Alex remaining tight-lipped about our destination. When we finally arrived, my jaw dropped at the sight of a lavish beach house overlooking the ocean. "Alex, what is this?" He grinned, clearly pleased with himself. "I bought it for my parents, their anniversary gift." My heart sank as the realization hit me. "You used our savings for this, without even discussing it with me?" "Lisa, they've always dreamed of a place like this. I wanted to make that dream come true." I felt a lump forming in my throat. "And what about my dreams, Alex? Don't they matter to you at all?" His face hardened. "Don't be selfish. This is for my parents." As we stepped inside the luxurious beach house, I couldn't help but feel like an outsider in my own life. Alex's parents would monopolize this place, and I would be left on the sidelines as always. That night, as Alex slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, my mind racing. How could he make such a monumental decision without consulting me? Did our partnership, our marriage, mean nothing to him? I knew then that something had to change. I couldn't continue living in Alex's shadow, my desires and dreams constantly overshadowed by his family's wants. It was time to take control of my own life, no matter the cost. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. Alex was already up, buzzing with excitement about showing me around the beach house. "Isn't it incredible, Lisa?" he gushed as we stepped onto the spacious deck overlooking the ocean. "My parents are going to love it here." I forced a smile, trying to share in his enthusiasm, but my heart wasn't in it. All I could think about was the savings we had painstakingly accumulated over the years, now gone without a second thought. As we toured the lavish property, Alex rattled off details about the state-of-the-art kitchen, the luxurious bedrooms, and the private beach access. But with each room we entered, the weight on my chest grew heavier. "Alex, can we talk about this?" I finally blurted out, unable to hold it in any longer. He frowned, clearly caught off guard. "What's there to talk about? I did this for my parents." "But you didn't even consult me," I pressed. "We're supposed to be partners, remember? This was a huge decision that affects both of us." His expression hardened. "Lisa, you're making too big a deal out of this. It's just a beach house." "Just a beach house?" I wanted to scream at him, to make him understand how much this betrayal hurt. But I knew it would be futile. Alex had already made up his mind, and nothing I said would change that. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried a different approach. "Okay, fine, but at least let me suggest something." He raised an eyebrow, his arms folded across his chest. "What?" "Since it's such a big place, maybe we could let my parents visit sometimes, too? That way we could all enjoy it together." The words had barely left my mouth when Alex's face contorted into a scowl. "Absolutely not. This is my parents' place, Lisa. Yours will never set foot in it." I recoiled as if he had slapped me. The callousness of his words stung like 1,000 needles, piercing my heart. In that moment, I saw a side of Alex I had never witnessed before. A cold, selfish man who cared only about himself and his own family. As he stormed off, muttering something about me being ungrateful, I sank onto the plush couch, tears streaming down my face. How had it come to this? Where was the caring, loving man I had married? I knew then that our relationship was fractured beyond repair. Alex had made his choice, and it wasn't me. It was time for me to make mine. The days that followed were tense, to say the least. Alex and I barely spoke, the weight of our argument hanging over us like a thick fog. I tried to enjoy the beach house, to soak in the beauty of our surroundings, but it all felt tainted by the rift between us. Whenever I caught a glimpse of Alex, he was either on the phone with his parents, gushing about their new home, or making arrangements for their upcoming visit. It was like I didn't even exist anymore. One evening, as we sat in silence on the deck, I decided to make one last attempt at reaching him. "Alex," I began, my voice wavering slightly. "I know this beach house means a lot to you and your parents, but don't you think we should have discussed it first?" He let out an exasperated sigh, as if I were a child pestering him with trivial questions. "Lisa, we've been over this. It was my decision to make." "But we're supposed to be partners," I insisted, my frustration mounting. "We're supposed to make big decisions like this together." Alex slammed his glass down, the ice cubes rattling against the sides. "Enough, Lisa. This is for my parents, not you. Why can't you just be happy for them?" I recoiled at the venom in his voice, the same voice that had once whispered sweet nothings in my ear. "I am happy for them, Alex, but I'm also hurt that you didn't even consider my feelings." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Your feelings? What about my parents' feelings? They've sacrificed so much for us, and this is how you repay them." I opened my mouth to protest, but he cut me off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "You know what? I'm done talking about this. Just try to enjoy the beach house, okay?" As he stormed off, leaving me alone on the deck, I felt the weight of his words crush me. It was like I was an outsider in my own life, a mere spectator to the decisions that affected me most. In that moment, I realized that Alex had made his choice. His parents would always come first, no matter what. And if I stayed with him, I would be forever relegated to the sidelines, my own dreams and desires pushed aside. I thought back to the early days of our relationship when we had been so in sync, so supportive of each other's aspirations. Where had that Alex gone? Had he ever truly existed, or had I been blinded by my love for him? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the ocean, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not let Alex dictate the course of my life any longer. It was time to take control of my own destiny, no matter how painful the path might be. In the days that followed, I found myself lost in a haze of memories. The good times Alex and I had shared, the dreams we had built together. Had it all been a lie, or had something changed within him, turning him into a stranger I no longer recognized? I thought back to our early days of dating, how attentive and caring he had been. He had listened to my hopes and aspirations, encouraging me to chase them fearlessly. We had been true partners then, supporting each other through thick and thin. But somewhere along the way, that dynamic had shifted. Alex had become consumed by his desire to please his parents, to live up to their expectations, and in the process, he had left me behind, a mere afterthought in his grand plans. As I sat on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore, I couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal. How could he have made such a monumental decision without even consulting me? Didn't our marriage, our partnership, mean anything to him? I thought about confronting him again, trying to make him see reason. But deep down, I knew it would be futile. Alex had made his choice, and no amount of pleading or arguing would change that. That's when the idea struck me. A plan so daring, so bold, that it made my heart race just thinking about it. If Alex wasn't going to listen to reason, then perhaps it was time to take a different approach. I reached out to Sarah, my closest friend, and poured out my heart to her. She listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. "Lisa, you don't deserve to be treated like this," she said, her voice filled with concern. "You need to stand up for yourself." And that's when I knew what I had to do. With Sarah's help, I began to gather evidence, screenshots of our conversations, recordings of Alex's dismissive comments, and detailed accounts of his behavior. I would build an airtight case, one that would leave no doubt about the emotional abuse I had endured. Each day, as Alex continued to fawn over his parents and their precious beach house, I worked diligently, documenting every slight, every insult, every instance of him putting his family before me. Finally, after weeks of careful preparation, I felt ready. I had a solid support system in place, a group of friends who had rallied around me, offering unwavering encouragement and advice. As I stood in front of the mirror, gathering my resolve, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and determination. I was no longer the meek, submissive woman who had allowed herself to be pushed aside. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had reclaimed her power, and her voice. And with that newfound strength, I marched into the living room where Alex was lounging on the couch, oblivious to the storm that was about to descend upon him. "Alex," I said, my voice steady and unwavering, "I've had enough of you making all the decisions. This ends now." Alex looked up from his phone, a bemused expression on his face. "What are you talking about, Lisa?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. "This marriage. The way you've treated me, put your parents before everything else, it stops now." His brow furrowed in confusion. "Lisa, you're overreacting. I bought that beach house for my parents, that's all." "That's all," I echoed, my voice rising. "You made a huge financial decision without even consulting me. You completely disregarded my feelings and my input, and when I tried to talk to you about it, you shut me down every single time." Alex opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "No, it's my turn to speak now. For too long I've let you walk all over me, put your family's needs above mine, but not anymore." I could see the anger flickering in his eyes, but I didn't care. The floodgates had opened, and there was no stopping the torrent of emotions pouring out. "I've spent weeks gathering evidence, documenting every instance of you dismissing me, belittling me, and making me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. And you know what? It's a damning picture." "Alex," he scoffed, shaking his head. "Evidence? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about recordings, screenshots, detailed accounts of your behavior," I said, my voice steady and unwavering. "I have everything I need to build a solid case against you." Alex's face paled, and for a moment he seemed at a loss for words. Finally he regained his composure, his eyes narrowing. "So what, you're going to try to take me to court or something? Over a beach house?" I let out a bitter laugh. "This isn't just about the beach house, Alex. It's about the complete disrespect and disregard you've shown me throughout our entire marriage. And you know what? I'm done." His jaw clenched, and I could see the anger simmering just beneath the surface. "What are you saying, Lisa?" "I'm saying I want a separation, and I'm not going to contribute another dime towards that beach house or anything else for your parents. It's time for me to take control of my life again." Alex sprang to his feet, his face contorted in rage. "You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you, for us?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "You've done nothing for me, Alex. You've only ever thought about yourself and your family. Well, now it's my turn to think about me." Before he could respond, I turned and walked out of the room, my heart pounding but my resolve unwavering. It was a terrifying step, but one I knew I had to take. Over the next few days, I worked tirelessly to put my exit strategy into motion. I met with a trusted financial advisor who helped me separate my assets and ensure I was protected. "You're doing the right thing, Lisa," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "No one deserves to be treated like that." I also reached out to Sarah, who connected me with a friend of real estate agent who could help me find a new place to call home. As I packed up my belongings, Alex hovered nearby, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anger. But I refused to back down, refused to let him intimidate me any longer. "I hope you're happy, Lisa," he spat as I loaded the last box into my car. "You're throwing away everything we've built together." I turned to face him, my heart heavy but my mind clear. "No, Alex, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally taking control of my life, something I should have done a long time ago." With those words, I got into my car and drove away, leaving the beach house and the toxic relationship it represented behind me for good. The look on Alex's face when I walked out was one I'll never forget. Shock, disbelief, and a hint of fear, as if he couldn't quite comprehend the reality of what was happening. "Lisa, wait," he called after me, his voice tinged with desperation. "We can work this out, I promise." But I didn't stop. I didn't even turn around. I just kept walking, each step carrying me further away from the life I had known and closer to the freedom I so desperately craved. As I settled into my new apartment, a cozy one-bedroom that felt like a sanctuary after the opulence of the beach house, I couldn't help but feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was in control of my own destiny, free from the constant pressure of pleasing Alex and his family. Of course, the transition wasn't easy. Alex bombarded me with calls and texts, alternating between pleading and anger, trying every tactic to convince me to come back. But I stood firm, reminding him that his actions had left me no choice. "You made your priorities clear, Alex," I told him during one particularly heated exchange, "and I refuse to be an afterthought in my own life anymore." His response was a bitter tirade about how ungrateful I was, how I was throwing away everything he had worked so hard to provide. But his words held no power over me anymore. I had broken free from his toxic grip, and nothing he could say would change that. As the weeks passed, I slowly began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I threw myself into my work, relishing the sense of accomplishment and purpose it brought me. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who had stood by me through the darkest times with Alex, and made new connections, surrounding myself with a support system of people who truly cared about my well-being. And yet, even as I thrived in my newfound independence, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness for Alex. From the snippets I heard through mutual acquaintances, his life was unraveling, a tangled web of financial stress and familial discord. Apparently, without my income to help support the lavish beach house, he was struggling to keep up with the mounting expenses. He had taken on multiple jobs, working himself to the bone in a desperate attempt to appease his parents and maintain the lifestyle they had come to expect. But it was a losing battle, and the strain was starting to show. His parents, once so enamored with the idea of their beachfront paradise, were now growing increasingly resentful, lashing out at Alex for the financial burden he had placed on them. "I can't believe you promised us this dream and turned it into a nightmare," his mother had reportedly shouted during one heated argument. As for me, I had finally found my own dream, a life of independence, free from the toxic dynamic that had nearly crushed my spirit. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. And as I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, sipping a glass of wine and watching the sun dip below the horizon, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. Alex had made his choices, and now he was facing the consequences. It was a harsh lesson, but one he had brought upon himself. As the months went by, my newfound freedom only seemed to embolden me further. With each passing day, I felt myself growing stronger, more confident in my ability to forge my own path. At work, my dedication and drive didn't go unnoticed. My boss, a no-nonsense woman who valued hard work above all else, took me under her wing, praising my tenacity and offering me new opportunities to showcase my talents. "Lisa, you've got a fire in you that I haven't seen in a long time," she told me one day after I'd successfully landed a major client. "Keep this up, and there's no telling how far you can go." Her words filled me with a sense of pride and validation that I had sorely lacked in my marriage to Alex. For the first time in years, I felt seen and appreciated for who I truly was, not just as an extension of someone else's desires. Outside of work, my social circle blossomed as well. Sarah, my steadfast friend who had been by my side through the darkest days, introduced me to a vibrant group of women who shared my zest for life and independence. We'd gather for weekly dinners, swapping stories and offering each other support and advice. "You're like a different person, Lisa," Sarah remarked one evening as we sipped wine on her balcony. "It's like you've finally found your true self again." And she was right. With each passing day, the weight of my former life seemed to lift a little more, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and self-assurance. Even as my life flourished, however, I couldn't help but catch glimpses of Alex's downward spiral. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard whispers of his mounting financial troubles, his desperate attempts to juggle multiple jobs to keep the beach house afloat. "He's working himself to the bone," one friend confided in me, "and his parents are just piling on the pressure, demanding he keep up with the lavish lifestyle they've become accustomed to." A part of me felt a twinge of sympathy for Alex, knowing firsthand the toll his parents' expectations could take. But that fleeting moment of empathy was quickly overshadowed by the memories of his callous disregard for my own needs and desires. "He made his bed," I told my friend firmly. "Now he has to lie in it." As if to underscore the poetic justice of the situation, it was around that time that I met someone new, a kind, thoughtful man who seemed to embody everything Alex had lacked. His name was David, and we met through a mutual friend at a neighborhood barbecue. From the moment we started talking, I felt an instant connection, a sense of ease and understanding that had been sorely lacking in my previous relationship. "Lisa, you're an incredible woman," he told me one night as we shared a bottle of wine on my balcony, "and you deserve to be treated as such." His words, spoken with such sincerity and warmth, struck a chord deep within me. For so long I had been made to feel like a mere accessory in my own life, my wants and needs constantly overshadowed by those of others. But with David, I felt truly seen and valued. "Thank you," I whispered, reaching out to take his hand. "You have no idea how much that means to me." As our relationship blossomed, I couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between David and Alex. Where Alex had been selfish and dismissive, David was attentive and supportive, always making me feel like an equal partner in our relationship. And as I fell deeper into this new, healthy dynamic, the weight of my past seemed to lift entirely, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility that I had long since forgotten. As my life blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of independence and self-discovery, Alex's world seemed to be unraveling at an alarming pace. It started with whispers from mutual acquaintances, hushed conversations about his mounting financial struggles and the strain it was putting on his family relationships. Apparently, the lavish beach house had become a millstone around his neck, a constant drain on his resources that no amount of hard work could sustain. "I heard he lost his job," Sarah confided in me one evening over drinks. Something about missing too many days to work all those extra shifts he was taking on. I tried to muster up a sense of sympathy, but the truth was, I felt a twisted sense of vindication. This was the price Alex had to pay for his selfishness, for prioritizing his parents' whims over the well-being of our marriage. As the weeks wore on, the news only seemed to grow more dire. Through the grapevine, I learned that Alex's parents had grown increasingly resentful, lashing out at him for the financial burden he had placed on them. "You promised us a dream, Alex," his mother had reportedly shouted during one heated argument, "and now it's turned into a nightmare." Part of me wanted to reach out, to offer some sort of olive branch or words of comfort, but the wounds of his betrayal still ran too deep, and I knew that any attempt at reconciliation would only reopen old scars. So instead, I focused my energy on my own life, on the blossoming relationship with David and the newfound sense of purpose I had discovered in my career and friendships. It was during one of our weekly dinners with Sarah and the rest of our tight-knit group that the news finally broke. The beach house, the source of so much strife and turmoil, had gone into foreclosure. "Can you believe it?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and schadenfreude. "After everything he put you through, Lisa, it's finally come crashing down around him." I should have felt a sense of triumph, a validation that justice had been served. But in that moment, all I felt was a profound sense of sadness. Not for Alex, but for the person he had become, so consumed by his own selfishness and ego that he had lost sight of what truly mattered. As the news spread through our social circles, the reactions ranged from sympathy to outright glee, with most people firmly in the latter camp. "He got what was coming to him," one acquaintance remarked callously. "Serves him right for treating you like that." But I couldn't bring myself to revel in his downfall, no matter how richly deserved it might have been. Because deep down, I knew that true revenge wasn't about watching him suffer. It was about rising above the toxicity and forging a life of true fulfillment and happiness. And that's exactly what I did. With David's unwavering support and the encouragement of my newfound circle of friends, I began to make plans for my own dream, a modest but charming vacation cabin nestled in the heart of a picturesque mountain range. It was a far cry from the opulent beach house that had nearly torn my life apart, but to me, it represented something far more valuable, a sanctuary of my own, a place where I could escape the stresses of the world and simply bask in the beauty of nature and the freedom I had fought so hard to attain. As I stood on the porch of my newly acquired cabin, breathing in the crisp mountain air and taking in the breathtaking views, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a peace that had been sorely lacking in my life for far too long. "Finally," I whispered to myself, a small smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, "a place that's truly mine. No more compromises, no more sacrifices, just me, living life on my own terms." And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a canvas of fiery reds and vibrant oranges, I knew that I had won. Not just against Alex and his toxic behavior, but against the self-doubt and insecurity that had once held me back. I was free, truly and utterly free, and as I stepped back inside my cozy cabin, I couldn't help but feel a sense of profound gratitude for the winding path that had led me here. A path paved with heartache and betrayal, but one that had ultimately shown me the way to my own truth and happiness.